Hello and welcome to Nice and Blunt. It's time to look ahead to week 13 and make my picks. So in this video, I'm going to give you all my win-loss predictions for every matchup and also go over the players who I think are worth picking up based on what happened in week 12. Before I get into this week, I want to go over last week's picks, and on Sunday, I got a lot of games wrong. I was only 5-9 through the first 14 games in week 12. This was not my week. But overall, my record is still basically 60% correct. An overall record of 106, 72, and 1, counting that Pittsburgh-Detroit tie. And my overall win percentage is 59% when it comes to these win-loss predictions. So trying to bring that up. And last week was my worst week on the season. So it could be worse, but let's look ahead to week 13 and get going. Okay, so first game on the slate is Dallas at New Orleans on Thursday night. And Dallas is definitely going to bounce back. They're going to get Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb back. And I'm sure Jerry Jones is going to be very happy. Dak will be happy. And this offense is going to be humming. I think Tony Pollard is the running back you want at the moment. It looks like he's going to get an increased workload as they try and get Zeke as healthy as possible for the playoffs. I love the Cowboys in this one. I think their defense is going to really limit the New Orleans Saints, who may be without Alvin Kamara yet again. Probably Mark Ingram will sit out as well. And it looks like Taysom Hill is getting first-team reps at quarterback in practice today. So he is going to be the quarterback. I don't really want to start anyone, not even the defense against Dallas. This is not ideal, but give me the Cowboys on Thursday night. And then on Sunday morning, Tampa Bay goes on the road against the Falcons, and this is not going to be a competitive game at all like that Colts game was. Give me Tampa for sure. They're going to stomp all over the Falcons, and I think they're going to have Antonio Brown back, so Tom Brady's definitely going to bounce back. He's going to be just fine, but I don't think Leonard Fournette is going to score 4 touchdowns. It really showed how touchdown dependent the wide receivers are in Tampa. And with Antonio Brown and Gronk back, it does limit their upside a little bit, but I do think that they're still starting options. Everyone in Tampa has a ton of upside. But when it comes to the Falcons, Cordero Patterson was back and dominated last week with 2 touchdowns, and Kyle Pitts was basically a no-show. He had a decent amount of targets, but only caught 2 receptions, and it was even worse than that game against Bill Belichick. He could struggle the rest of the season, but I have a feeling he'll bounce back at some point. And there's going to be some garbage time in this game, so it could be as early as this week. I'd still consider Kyle Pitts a top 10 tight end. But for sure, give me Tampa. I'm still not that interested in Russell Gage. I think the upside is very capped. But if Calvin Ridley isn't starting, then he would be the number 1 Atlanta wide receiver. Only interested in a deep format, though. And then Arizona goes on the road at Chicago off of their bye. And there's a chance that Justin Fields suits up, but I think it's unlikely. I think it's probably Andy Dalton again. And we don't know if Allen Robinson is going to be ready either. But I think either way, no matter who else plays, I think Darnell Mooney is the wide receiver that you want. And at this point, he's looking like a top 20 wide receiver, possibly a league winner if you got him off the waiver wire recently. I did in both of my leagues, and I'm really looking forward to starting him pretty much week in, week out. I don't really care for this matchup. I think he'll be just fine. And he's getting a lot of targets, especially down the field. Arizona should be healthy after this bye week. I think Kyler and Hopkins will suit up. But I was optimistic that would happen in the last 2 games, and that didn't happen. So I could be wrong. We will see. I think Christian Kirk is the next wide receiver that you want. But Hopkins hasn't really been himself all season, and I'm a little bit worried. Hopefully, he is as close to 100% as possible. James Conner is going to lead this running attack, and he's going to be very useful for at least one more game. But Chase Edmonds is nearing the end of that 3-week IR minimum time window. And at some point in December, he is going to come back. So that is going to bring Conner a little bit back down to earth. But I think that the Cardinals will roll in this one. They're one of the best teams in the league, and they won't lose to the Bears. So give me the Cardinals on the road, and then my Chargers go on the road against the Bengals. Both of these teams beat Pittsburgh, but the Bengals win was a little bit more decisive, and they're going to be playing at home, and I trust Joe Burrow very much. I also trust Justin Herbert. The offense for the Chargers is looking really good, but I think the defense for the Bengals is a little bit more reliable this year, especially against the run, and that's why I'm going to give the edge to Cincinnati. I don't think the Chargers are going to be able to stop Joe Mixon at all. He's looking like a top 5 elite running back, and you want him in your lineup. There's no way you would bench Joe Mixon. So he's going to light it up, possibly my number 1 on the week. Stay tuned for my running back rankings available tomorrow. But I think that that's going to lead the Bengals to victory, and that's why I'm going to pick the Cincinnati Bengals to win this game. It's going to be very competitive, though, and every Charger is going to be worth starting. Although Mike Williams is starting to look a little bit more risky, maybe not a lock-it-in top 20 wide receiver anymore. But then the New York Giants go on the road at the Miami Dolphins, and this is going to be a heavy defensive game. I don't like either offense, and especially with no Sterling Shepard or Kadarius Toney, the Giants are really going to struggle. I don't think Saquon Barkley is trustworthy, very touchdown dependent. And Miami's defense has been looking pretty good lately, so this is going to be a very low-scoring game. I don't think Tua is going to be that successful. However, I will take the Dolphins at home. I trust Brian Flores more than I trust Joe Judge. But at this point, Jalen Waddle is a must-start wide receiver. He has vaulted into my top 20 and is going to stay there the rest of the season. And Mike Gesicki is still getting the targets. I think he'll bounce back. Last week, he kind of just had a bad matchup. Keeping it moving, the Philadelphia Eagles go on the road against the New York Jets. And they really looked beatable last week, but I don't think that they'll sleep on the Jets, and I don't think the Jets have as good of a defense. So I think Philly will win this. They should, but Jalen Hurts is a little bit unreliable. You never know when he's going to put up a terrible game. So odds are he's fine, and Devontae Smith is a big component in that. However, this run game is very banged up at the moment. Miles Sanders was playing great until he got injured in the second quarter. So if he doesn't play, then Boston Scott has some fantasy value. This is a great matchup against the Jets, but I think either way, the Philadelphia Eagles will roll and win over the Jets on the road. And then the Colts go on the road against Houston, and it was a tough loss last week. They should have won. They called the game the way they needed to win, and some costly turnovers by Wentz in the third quarter really cost them the win. But can't blame them. They stuck it out and competed to the end. It was a one-score game at the end of it. I don't think this one's going to be close. I think the Colts are going to roll, and Jonathan Taylor will return to elite status. He had a floor game last week, but it was a pretty high floor. Don't worry about Jonathan Taylor. The Colts do get a bye in Week 14, though, so keep that in mind. You're going to need to bench them next week. The Washington football team is going to go on the road against the Vegas Raiders, and we'll see what Washington can do tonight. I think Terry will be a top 12 wide receiver once again, and we'll see what Logan Thomas can do coming off that injury. But I think the player who's really going to finish out the season strong is Antonio Gibson. I'm expecting a big game from Antonio Gibson, but they're going to go on the road against the Raiders, who really showed up in a surprise upset win against Dallas. And Darren Waller got injured, but Hunter Renfrow stepped up. Deshaun Jackson also connected, and they needed a deep threat. So this is great for them if the success can continue. However, I don't know if I fully buy in to Josh Jacobs' massive workload. He had 22 carries and 4 targets in that win against Dallas, and the game script really benefited him, but we haven't seen him have a workload like this since last season, so I don't know if it's going to keep up. But if it does, I think I would pick them at home, although feels a little bit risky. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars go on the road against the Rams, and it's going to be an easy win for Sean McVay and the Rams. They haven't won in a while, and this is going to be a get-right game for the LA Rams. Cooper Kupp is obviously a top 5 wide receiver, but I think OBJ and Van Jefferson both deserve flex consideration every single week. I love their potential moving forward. In Jacksonville, though, the only player you trust is James Robinson, and no one has any upside at all. This matchup is going to be really tough, and the Rams defense are going to be a top 5 play at defense this week. And then the Baltimore Ravens go against the Steelers on the road, and the Steelers are looking terrible at the moment. 2 bad losses, and TJ Watt was just placed on the COVID list today. So I think Baltimore and Lamar Jackson will be better than they were against the Browns. I don't expect 4 interceptions to be thrown, but give me the Ravens for sure. I don't like what I'm seeing from the Pittsburgh Steelers. You obviously got to start Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris, but Najee may struggle again in a bad matchup against the Ravens. And even though I don't think they can win this game, I'd still probably start Chase Claypool. He is a high-end flex option. And Pat Freiermuth is getting a ton of red zone targets, especially with Eric Ebron out. So he's a top 10 tight end as well. But I do not like Ben Roethlisberger, and I think the Ravens will win. Marquise Brown was healthy again, saw 10 targets, and he is a top 12 wide receiver every week. And then the last game of the afternoon, the San Francisco 49ers go on the road against the Seahawks. It doesn't look like Deebo Samuel will be available, but that's not a guarantee. He may suit up, but I don't think they need him. I think Seattle's really going to struggle, especially against a division opponent. Their offense is not looking very good, but in this matchup, I do not trust them. I will take the 49ers for sure. You can trust Elijah Mitchell. He had a huge workload coming off that finger injury. And even though George Kittle was kind of forgotten, if Deebo Samuel doesn't suit up, that won't be a trend that continues. I definitely trust the 49ers options. And Brandon Ayuk would be a top 25 play. But with no run game, the Seahawks won't stand a chance. The 49ers will win this one for sure. And then the Denver Broncos go on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs, a division matchup. And the Chiefs are going to come off a bye, and I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is really going to be involved. He is kind of the X factor and the player who I think really needs to get going and be consistent if the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. I think that's what they want to do, and I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think the Broncos stand a chance, and I trust Patrick Mahomes to get it right in this game. The Chiefs' defense is also really underrated and playing great lately. They're an interesting fantasy pickup, and they could have a really high ceiling in this Sunday night matchup. Last game on the docket, the Monday night game between the Patriots and the Bills, a battle for first place in the division. And the Patriots look like a playoff team. The Bills are a little bit risky at the moment. I don't fully trust them, even though they handed it to the Saints. Just doesn't really sit right with me. And Dawson Knox has a ton of upside. He's the number 2 option behind Stephon Diggs for fantasy purposes. And I think this will be a relatively competitive game, but I feel like the final score is going to be like 28-27, and the Patriots are going to find a way to edge it out. So I will take Mac Jones and the Patriots. They look like a juggernaut, and I'm starting to feel like they have really good underdog odds at the Super Bowl. I don't know if they would win the Super Bowl, but they could definitely make it because there aren't that many teams in the AFC that you fully trust at the moment. And then the teams on bye are the Browns, the Packers, the Titans, and the Packers. So I'll talk about them briefly. I think the Browns really need this bye to get healthy. Baker Mayfield needs the rest, and Kareem Hunt looks like he definitely needs a little bit more rest. They didn't give him that many touches. I think they'll increase on a weekly basis, especially after this bye week, but the Browns' run game will bounce back, and they will lean on it the rest of the season. Nick Chubb will be a lot better than he was last week. And then the Packers kind of need this bye as well. Aaron Jones definitely didn't look 100%. A.J. Dillon got most of the touches, and I think it's basically the same as the Dallas situation. I think when they come back, A.J. Dillon isn't going to go anywhere, and he's going to have a very consistent role. I don't know if it's going to be as much of a disparity because I think Aaron Jones is more healthy than Zeke at the moment. However, both of them feel like top 20 running backs, and I think you want both of them in your lineup. Randall Cobb got hurt, and we'll see if he misses a decent amount of time. But I think MVS has a lot of upside rest of season and could be a key contributor in the fantasy playoffs. He's seen 19 targets in the last 2 games, and he's definitely the wide receiver 2 for Aaron Rodgers if Randall Cobb can't go. The Titans are also in a weird spot. They don't have A.J. Brown. He's on IR. And until he comes back, they are forced to be a run-first team once again. I don't think they want to. I don't think it's going to work. I think they're going to lose pretty much every game without A.J. Brown. However, last week they did have 2 players go over 100 yards rushing. And for fantasy purposes, I think they both offer a decent floor, but they're just flex plays. I don't think that's something you can count on. And in PPR formats, they have no upside whatsoever. So I really don't like any Titan, especially not Ryan Tannehill. This is not a team you want to invest in at the moment. And then the Carolina Panthers are also kind of struggling. Christian McCaffrey has been ruled out for the rest of the season with an ankle injury. So Chuba Hubbard comes back and is a top 20 running back the rest of the way, but he doesn't have much upside, especially with Cam Newton there. He is going to steal a lot of the goal line touches, and I don't think this team is going to have many scoring opportunities. Their offense is really really hurting at the moment. So they're going to be pretty matchup dependent. I don't really love the upside for any player except DJ Moore, but even he is very touchdown dependent. Okay, so that's every game. I'll go right back through them and give you those picks. I got Dallas over the Saints. I got Tampa over the Falcons. Give me the Cardinals over the Bears. Give me the Bengals over the Chargers. The Vikings over the Lions. The Dolphins over the Giants. The Eagles over the Jets. The Colts over the Texans. I picked the Raiders over the football team, but that one feels like a real toss-up. I'm going to stick with the Raiders. And then the Rams over the Jaguars. The Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens, over the Pittsburgh Steelers. The 49ers over the Seahawks. The Chiefs over the Broncos. And the Patriots over Buffalo. And then on bye, there's the Cleveland Browns, the Green Bay Packers, the Tennessee Titans, and the Carolina Panthers. So that's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. I'll have running back rankings out tomorrow and wide receiver rankings out on Wednesday and some must starts later in the week. But until next time, my name is Adam Riancho, and thank you for watching Nice and Blunt.